Welcome to the 757 Renaissance Man podcast. On this episode, we chop it up with Mr. Max Nomad. On this episode, we discuss my LVAD and me becoming a cyborg, battery stock and electric vehicles, a day in the life of Max Nomad, the joys of corporate Dred Locs, books that need to be finished, the story of iTribe and Picus, cybersecurity is fun, how Max Nomad opened the doors for my career, and much, much more. Let's have a conversation with Mr. Max Nomad.
You hear me?
Yeah, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. What's going on, man?
Good, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. It has. Anyway, here I is.
All right. So let's start it this way.
Okay.
Welcome to the 757 Renaissance Man podcast. I'm sitting here with a good friend of mine that I know that we're probably going to have a very interesting conversation today. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Mr. Max Nomad. How are you doing today, sir?
All right. How you doing, sir?
How have you been, man? It's been a while.
I've been good. It's been an interesting trip. I mean, well, we've all been dealing with an interesting trip,
Right.
you know, but considering everything else that could be going on, I'm extremely blessed and fortunate. We're treating it a little bit like house arrest. You just dig in and use all of this time to really pick something to focus on and get good at it.
Correct.
So,
Correct. I say that if you didn't use this time to focus and learn something new or enhance what you're already doing, you wasted your time.
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, it forced me to focus on a couple things, settle down, start new projects, new hobbies, new podcasts.
Right.
Yeah,
I saw your new logo looks good, by the way.
Thank you. That's the one for my LVAD podcast. The one for this podcast is being worked on as we speak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I was like, LVAD? I was like, you know what? Well, I'll just ask about it and see what's going on. So,
Well, since you asked, since last time we saw each other in person, I had a major heart attack.
what?
Yeah, major heart attack. And the crazy thing was, I didn't have the typical symptoms that they say you have with a heart attack. Like they say you're supposed to get that pain, the shooting pain and running down your arm and all that. I didn't find out until afterwards that it was actually a heart attack. I knew something was going on. I didn't quite feel right. We had to go to the hospital. I wasn't breathing correctly, but I wasn't in pain at all. I was actually joking and laughing and playing with the nurses.
That's spooky. That's funny in a darkly humorous kind of way, but it's still very spooky.
Yeah, I didn't find out until after they did my lab work, and it's a certain enzyme that your body gives off when you're having a heart attack. And that they came to me and said, Mr. Connors, you had a heart attack. So they kept me in the hospital. The next day they was doing some testing. Apparently right before the test they were getting ready to do, I had another heart attack. Again, didn't feel it. I wasn't in pain, just out of breath. I suffered from what's called AFib, and that's when your heart beats uncontrollably. So basically I could be sitting at a desk and it would be like I just ran around the block. And after that, they put me on the Nightingale and took me to the Norfolk Centera. At Norfolk Centera, they sat me down and was like, your heart is at 5%. You need this thing called an LVAD. And so, lost connection. Hey.
Hey,
All
sorry
right.
about
It happens.
Yeah, and it would figure. I forgot I had two virtual machines running along with this, and between that and Teams and use both Linux virtual machines and all that, and then closing out I hadn't even bothered to close out the TD Ameritrade on this machine. So all of a sudden, I was just like, okay, I'll just throw Zoom into the mix, and I forgot. You generally want to keep things a little more streamlined when you're doing this stuff. So forgive my delay. And then when booting back up, it wanted to take its own sweet time and say, you know what, this is why we don't like mechanical hard drives anymore.
Yeah.
We like,
solid
this is
state.
in solid state. And I'm actually, believe it or not, only reason I'm not so much, they're a lot better now within the past year or so, but I've had horror stories in like a couple of years ago with solid state, because at least with a mechanical drive, you can tell when it's on its way.
Mm-hmm.
But to your example about a heart attack, not knowing it, solid state will have you laughing and joking, and everything could just be gone just like that.
Don't tell me that. I'm getting ready. I'm having a new computer built.
Oh, like I said, they've gotten a lot better. They've companies have gotten a lot better with that. The speed is nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, so where were we?
I was telling you how I was. They told me I had a heart attack. I didn't know it, didn't feel it. They took me to testing the next day, and I guess as the test was starting, I had another heart attack. Again, I didn't feel it. I'm still laughing and talking, being me, and all of a sudden, everybody comes in the room all big and wide-eyed, and they're like, we're having an emergency. We're going to airlift you. I was in Hampton, Centera. We're going to airlift you to the heart hospital in Norfolk. Right. Again, I'm not taking it as serious as probably as I should have. That's just my personality, I guess. I'm excited. Like, getting ready. I've never been in a helicopter before. Who wants to ride with me?
The thing is that, well, there's no sense in freaking out at that point, because you're already you're already in the place you need to be,
right,
for something like this to happen. So that's already a blessing.
Yeah.
You can't get any better than that.
Bruh, I enjoyed the ride to the on the helicopter. It just happened to be like rush hour. We flew over the tunnel traffic. That was cool to me, like watching everybody sit still and we just zoom over across. So I land and they check me out and they're like, your heart is at 5% capacity. They was like, you have to get this thing called an LVAD or you die. And I was like, let's try the LVAD and see what happens. And
right?
Being a tech guy, it kind of was interesting in a point as like, basically I'm a cyborg. I'm a real life cyborg now. I have a pump in my heart. It pumps the left side of your heart. Left side of your heart pumps blood out.
Right.
So that's what
ventricle,
it does. Right. It pumps the blood out. My right side is functioning, so it sucks the blood in and it just makes it complete the cycle. But it's a constant motor running on my heart at all times. So yeah, that's what I've kind of been up to.
You got to get a battery change every so often.
I have this bag with these two big bags, 2 batteries in here, 2 giant lithium batteries. Like, dude, I could take down an airplane.
Don't even joke like that. We don't need 2 brothers on video. See, you're gonna get, the podcasts will get big, sponsors. They're gonna be like, Sean Connors joked about terrorism. I can take down an airplane. Wow, but that's heavy.
Yeah, so I charge my the batteries last about 7, 8 hours. When I'm not on batteries, I literally turned into a gadget. When I'm not on batteries, I have to plug up and charge just like our cell phone.
Oh, I can relate. That's why I asked. And it's funny. That's lithium batteries and renewables is one of the things that I do with stocks, trading and investing and stuff like that. It's one of the areas. That's why it came to mind.
Yeah.
That and electric vehicles and but
Yeah, I am a human Tesla.
yeah, pretty much. Be careful because the Chinese are trying to. Like I can rattle off some stock symbols of companies that are trying to. Well, they're already big in China, but don't sleep on GM.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, Volkswagen might jump out the gate and scare everybody.
Yeah. Well, they've already been, with Audi and things. They've already have a couple of real good electric vehicles out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
pretty soon we're all going to have to go to the electric vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, they have some that are, hybrid electric vehicles. Some that are, that like the most of what we think about with electric vehicles are called BEVs,
Mm-hmm.
battery electric vehicles. And then there are the fuel cell version. I don't know. We digress. So anyway, sir, this is your show and your agenda.
No,
So
man, I'm honored to have you here so we could talk about anything in the mind of Max Nomad.
wow, that's a strange trip.
I know. That's
um,
why I asked you.
I see. Well, how about this? You give me a direction because, like, my typical day, believe it or not, I was, my typical day starts between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I haven't used an alarm clock about 15 years. I
Mm-hmm.
just wake up. And half the time, even if I've been up the night before, so I don't know. It's just a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
So my sleep habits are jacked. And then my mother is staying here with me. We here in the townhouse together, taking care of her during this pandemic and all that, which we got our first shot last week.
Good, good.
Next one, 1st of April.
Mm-hmm.
So feels good to be able to at least slowly get back to normalcy. Although I don't know if I'm going to know how to act after that. These days are. I mean, I'm still most of my clients. I still take care of them, but I was working remote anyway,
Mm-hmm.
even though most of them are still there in the area.
Mm-hmm.
But I started circling those wagons, tightening that up a long time ago, so I hadn't really been doing any traveling. Mm-hmm. I like it when I get there, but traveling to the airports, you just got to be a pain in the ass. Big black guy with dreadlocks,
Mm-hmm.
with a black backpack, still keep a backpack.
Right.
Black leather backpack, except this time it had at least laptop, tablet, cell phones, chargers, solar chargers, the fold out solar chargers, right. And you stuff all that, stuff all that in there. And even if you take all of the equipment out and send it through, there's always some little Filipino lady who's behind, working the thing. And then when it stops, you see her look. She looks and then all of a sudden it's like, sir, can you step aside? And so then I got to go through, then they got to search my hair. Right. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, this is where I keep the dope. And so yeah, I just got.
I'm laughing because I grew my hair. I grew locks for about 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I only cut them off because I had a son. And it was a thing with me and my dad. That was one of the things that we had together, was going to the barbershop on the weekends.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah, that's the only reason I cut him off. But I've had similar experiences, and I got to thank you too, because you were one of the influences in that. Because I played the game and worked a corporate job with Dred Locs just to see, and it actually went pretty far. And
yeah,
you know, just to play the, just to irritate people, I did it. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna lie and say I was on some big old conscious trip or whatever. I just wanted to see your face when I walked in the room with locks all the way down my back.
You know, there's a lot. I mean, I was on the conscious trip, but at the same time, it was. I found that it gave an advantage because 9 times out of 10, and I'm pretty sure this probably happened to you. You could walk in the most boardroom situations and sit down, not saying anything, and if you're around people that don't know you, okay. So all they're working off of is preconceived notions. You know, now you might know what company they're from and everything else. They have no idea what you know until you speak. And once you speak, you know, and you can, then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you're pulled in. You know, you can run the meeting however you want. Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. That is the bad thing about Microsoft Teams. You can put it on everything, and then folks will just, you know, and just, yeah, we're going to send it. So he's going to see it. You know, but this person, she's, for lack of a better, she's all right, on paper, she is the COO of this engineering firm. One of my main my clients, and I manage your network and stuff. And but then the only reason she's not CEO is because she doesn't have the engineering reputation.
Okay.
You know, she's got her MBA and all that. So the other CEO just recently retired. One of the top engineers took over as CEO, but it's mostly the name because he's still focused mostly on the work and the projects. Like one of the contracts that's going on right now, they're part of the team that's doing the expansion on the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel.
Okay.
And so I'm a subcontractor to a subcontractor to a subcontractor to a subcontractor to VDOT with this. And yeah, it's you know, and it all comes at me in waves. And when I'm not working on taking care of them, and I still do design stuff, mostly for startups and nonprofits. You know, especially nonprofits that are trying to do fundraising and stuff like that. I'm in the process of getting I've got a book coming out to that effect, but I'm not ready to promote it yet because it's been on hold, mostly due to the pandemic.
Okay.
Just because it's taken everything I learned about event planning. I'm not an event planner, but with the graphic design and the IT stuff, I've worked with dozens of event, you know, a few dozen event planners. Okay, they need everything from logos to souvenir journals, print material, collateral materials, build the brand, all that. And some of them were with church. Like I've got stories about church ladies for days. And matter of fact, it was church ladies, First Lynn Haven Baptist Church. Give them my shout out. They were the inspiration I said, you know what? At one point, I said, I keep seeing some of these mistakes being made. Let me, and I keep a crazy journal,
Mm-hmm.
but that's another subject. But I was like, let me start taking notes on these things. So there's a solution here. There's something I can copy and paste there. You make life easier for yourself. So, well, let me see if I can start on a book on that. And right now, that manuscript is at 482 pages.
Wow.
And I've still got it. My editor, she's not even talking to me right now. Um, well, she's waiting for it. And so, but yeah, it didn't seem like a good time to put out a book about
Event
that.
planning when you can't have
Yeah,
events.
tips for event planning
Uh,
at a time where no one's doing any live events or very few.
right.
And on that same note, it's actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because had I released it last year,
Mm-hmm.
but I originally had put pushed it back from 2019 into 2020. If I had released it in 2019, there are two or three major chapters in there that would have become passe because of the rise of Zoom
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, and new ways of doing meetings. Because tried to say, digital meetings, work on, use this, use that, use the technology, and most of the ladies would be like, okay, but they want to do it the old-fashioned way. Now that they've done the Zoom meetings and all that, now they love it. Now, granted, some of them are kind of like angry geese because they'll get there and they'll hunt and peck for whatever until they break something or it works, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But taking all that, put it all into a book, um, what to do, what not to do, what to avoid, a few stories here and there, um, stuff I've learned, some heartache I've learned on my own, stuff that cost me 5 figures, mistakes that cost you 5 figures. The only way you can really make up for that is if somebody else can benefit from it,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a tax write-off.
Right. So go back to your
Uh-oh.
story about the dreadlocks and the boardroom.
Oh, boardrooms. Yeah, because like I've been solo um since after I don't know if you know the story what happened with iTribe. The split iTribe
Yeah,
into
to two different companies. Uh-huh.
iTribe and Picus.
Mm-hmm.
And then um and the guys that we let, like I was focused more on R&D on the iTribe side. The guys with Picus, some of the top dogs basically were pulling an Enron.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, basically they were cooking the books and um, embezzling money out the back door.
Mm-hmm.
While Adolphe and them were raising funds. So all of a sudden, I happened to look at the newspaper. I guess that was around 2000. Yeah, and all of a sudden we see in big bold letters, Picus files for bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was that. And then with the iTribe guys, the guys we merged that with this other crew. And long story short, the money that the war chest that we had built up in the early days on our own without VC funding and all of that, more than a cool million war chest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they blew through that trying to do all these dog and pony shows, the various trade shows and everything. We're talking, and I find a lot of this out later,
Mm-hmm.
like the actual numbers. Um, Spent ridiculous amounts of money at trade shows or trade show booths, this, that, and the other thing, and um, in order to try and impress venture capital companies. And all of this came to a head around March of 2000, which was when the dot-com bubble burst.
Okay, I remember.
So all the VCs pulled back.
Mm-hmm.
And when they pulled back, then we had a bunch of programmers and a bunch of graphic designers. And yeah, we still had contracts coming in. We still had revenue coming in, but nowhere near to handle the amount of revenue going out. So it became, this is the first season that I showed Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it was like Survivor in the office too. Matter of fact, after by spring or early summer that year, it was like the way I wrote about it, I call it became like Lord of the Flies. Mm-hmm. Everything was cool, but then after a while, who killed Piggy? And people with pitchforks and torches and everything else. And, so all of that went to hell, but there was still revenue coming in. Me and two other guys, we kept iTribe going because I said, there's still money here, but because of the dudes that had run up debt and blown through our war chest, it was upside down. There was no way to, it was like the Poseidon adventure by that point. Ship's upside down, but you're still afloat.
Okay.
It's only a matter of time before it sinks. So we kept it going long enough to where we found a company out in San Diego to buy some of the remaining assets and sold them to them, like the automotive stuff. With, sold it to a company out there that was called Autoleap at the time. Sold it to them and took the money, paid back salaries for what we could, then bankrupted the company. Because it's one of those things. I mean, even the bankruptcy attorney was like, you guys should just take this money, split it between you and walk away. And I was like, wow, that's real tempting. I like waking up in the morning and knowing who I am. Integrity goes a long way. I don't care what anybody tells you. And I'm getting back to the whole Dred Locs board thing, but it sold it to the company out there, and then September 11th, the attacks of September 11th happened. They closed down the office out here. They said, can either have you move out to San Diego. I said, but if I move out there, I'm going to need triple the salary.
So that's cost of living.
Cost of living is ridiculous out there. Even the bums had portable TVs. Not bums, the homeless. Excuse me. Trying to be politically correct. And so I ended up working from here. That's what started me working remote and building up that whole thing, and then flying out there 5 or 6 times a year, for meetings, meet with clients and stuff. So then the next phase of all of that was me going into various meetings. Like I'd fly out there, stay in Rancho Bernardo, go to various meetings, again with the Locs. And so, but this time, not as an owner of the company. I mean, yeah, I owned a little piece of Autoleap, but I was not introduced as, yes, this is one of the partners in the firm. No, this is, totally white operation, raising in the milk. And most of those clients were like car dealerships, and so walking in and out of, meeting with car dealers with Locs. Some, don't get me wrong, some people were very cool. You could tell who's been cool all their life. You could tell who probably smoked a lot of weed and went to Grateful Dead concerts. Because they'd always look at me like, I bought weed from a guy that looks just like you. And then you have some of the curious ladies.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. And So it kind of became a test. I mean, I didn't think about it anymore as far it because it was part of it wasn't so much part of my reputation, just sort of part of who I am. And then after that kind of went, that got to a point where they made me an offer I couldn't accept.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were really trying to, they didn't know how, they couldn't just fire me because I knew every inch of their systems. I'd set up the servers,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so they were afraid of what I could do because I really could have just, Thanos,
Right.
and everything is gone.
Uh-huh.
And again, I'm not living like that. And so broke off with them. Um, did some freelance web design for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that work went overseas. This is about the time when everybody was thinking, "Oh, we could just outsource it to India,"
Mm-hmm.
and it forced me to get back into. I mean, my roots had always been IT and art, design and IT,
Mm-hmm.
but I could switch back and forth. Um, got back in IT, a lot more of the cybersecurity stuff because I grew up as a computer hack
Mm-hmm.
back in the 80s. And so it's just like, well, I never really let go of the security aspect. You just kind of keep up with it, and say, yeah, how would I get into this? Okay. And then you figure out how to patch that hole.
Mm-hmm.
And so did the little tiger team thing for a while where you hook up with a red team where you're with a group of people paid to hack into some network,
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's company, they're paying you to do it, not somebody else's.
Yeah.
And
To find the security holes.
it was part of network audits and stuff, and
Yeah.
so it meant um, usually anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months, sleeping at hotels, sleeping on couches, um, continental breakfast hacks. Like, so yeah, this is how you get the really warm bagels. If you let them sit out too long, they get really hard. This is how you take them back to the room. And and that was cool. And I'm again, I still deal with cybersecurity a lot, but I've brought it back local, and I deal mostly with companies involved with architecture, engineering, and construction firms. And again, the Locs is just a um, now it's not a thing because there are Locs all over the place. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd have to, I don't know, dye my hair blue and do a mohawk or something in order to really, freak them out or something like that. But enough of my rambling, man. What else have you been up to?
Oh man. Well, I do have to thank you because I mean you didn't per se hire me yourself, but working for iTribe slash Automark slash Picus gave me the experience to see how you move, and
Wow.
it really encouraged me to embrace my black nerdness.
Oh, never let go of your black nerd. That is your superpower.
I learned two things there. I learned to embrace my black nerdness and Photoshop. And that took
Yes.
me a long way. It took me a long way. So I left, I think it was around 99, right before everything hit the fan.
Yeah,
And
it was good timing.
yeah, it was a good timing. And the funny thing is, I still have lifelong friends that came out of that office. And I left there and I went. So let me tell you, I had a minor IT job before I came there. That was
Mm-hmm.
my first real corporate IT job. And I was kind of feeling my way out, seeing how things worked. Then I went from there and I ended up working for Jackson Hewitt Corporate.
Wow.
At that time, because they were based in Virginia Beach. I never knew that.
Right over there by
With the Best, across from the Best Buy.
yeah, across from the Best Buy. You know, that big brick building over there.
Yeah. That's my office was in there.
Okay.
And I got on their, before it was called digital development, it was like their digital educational department. So we made CD-ROMs and training for the different franchises, and that I learned so much there. We did, because if you did the whole multimedia project, we did the whole project, and it was a 3-man crew, not counting our manager. So we had to script it, we had to write it, we had to cast it. We'll grab people out the cubicles to be actors in the commercials. We had to write the music, we had to film it, we had to edit it. So I'm just soaking all of this in. They got bought by Sendit, and then they moved like maybe a mile down the street to this real huge office. I worked there for maybe 2 years or so, and then Sendit got acquired by some global conglomerate. And they was like, you can still have your job, because I love the job. Working with tax season, we had deadlines where from January to, I think our main deadline was like November, but we used to finish all our projects by like October. And then so for November and December, we didn't have nothing to do.
Nice.
We would come to work and take a nap and get paid for it. And then as long as you hit your deadlines, you got bonuses. Like, it was the first time in my life I ever had a single check written out 5 figures.
Nice.
Even after taxes. Even after
taxes. And it's a great thing.
Right. So I worked there, and then they got acquired, and they was like, you can have your job, but you got to move to New Jersey. And I was like, I don't know about New Jersey. So I started shopping my resume. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And I got picked up by a startup in DC. And this is right like months before the internet bubble burst. So at that time, you could pretty much ask for whatever you want and get it. Like, they paid for me to move up there. They paid for me to get there, get settled. I had a corner office, right? Are you familiar with downtown DC?
Parts of it. I spent a lot of time off of, let's see, 6th and S, Massachusetts Ave. Okay. Let's see, I was on I got a contract there with a company called Atlantic Video. You know, their network right up the street from Hyatt Regency Gold.
Did you ever take the train when you was
all
up
the
there?
time? Yeah, I never drove. I mean, the only time I drove while I was there was to move my
Nobody drives. Yeah, nobody drives up there.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time over in Adams Morgan. And like there was a place called Cafe Nema. Did it ring a bell? Yeah, that was like, Cafe Nema was where I ate dinner most of the time and drank plenty of Crown Royal and listened to bands and oh yeah.
So DC. you know where Union Station is?
Mm-hmm.
My office was across the street from Union Station in the same building CNN was in.
Okay.
And you know, and that was my first time being somewhere that had public transportation too. So that totally thrilled me. Like, I loved riding the train to work every morning. I felt like I was important. So I used to come, because of that, you get a certain schedule and you come in the building at the same time every day. It was security guard, everything in the building. And I used to come in, it just so happened I timed it every day where I used to come in with Wolf Blitzer.
You can't miss Wolf Blitzer because it's like his head arrives first. His head, because it's like it's almost like 3D. You see his face and his head, then the rest of his body is right there. It's kind of floating along with him.
He's a little dude. He doesn't look like that on TV. A little dude with a big head, right?
Yeah. You know, it's like something, it's like a Mardi Gras ass thing where, you know, and again, I say that with none but love and respect because I've met him at FedEx Stadium once.
He's cool dude. He's so funny. But at that time, he wasn't, what do you call it? he wasn't a
lead
major.
anchor.
Yeah, he wasn't a major anchor yet. Because this is
You're
back,
still out in the field and all
yeah,
that.
yeah. But he used to get on. We get on an elevator, and at the same every day he'll be like, "Hi, I'm Wolf Blitzer," and so I joked with him one day, and I was like, "You know what you need?" He was like, "What?" He was like, "I know who Bernard Shaw is. You know why?" He was like, "Why?" He was like, "Because he was on the desk when the first Gulf War broke out.
Right.
You need a war."
Yeah. He was one of the voices you heard while you watched all the
Right,
bombing
right.
stuff going on.
So I was just
They
joking,
did
and
that.
I
I'm
was
like,
like,
oh, wow.
"You need a war." And lo and behold, he was on the anchor. He was on desk when the second Gulf War broke out.
The Persian Gulf conflict. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
wow.
So I worked there for a while. Simultaneously, the .com bubble burst, and I met my wife, and we were ridiculously in love. Like I
That's a
wouldn't,
good thing.
like I wouldn't go to work. We both quit our jobs and we moved back down here because we was like, forget the world, we just gonna do it. And I worked off of freelance work for a while until I started working for it was a company called Dendrite, and I was just basically taking a IT job to pay the bills, and I did customer support for their main clients were for all the pharmaceutical reps,
Right.
which opened my eyes to a whole another different world that I didn't know about. So we were glorified IT, but we were basically their concierge. So we would handle everything from not being able to get their email, can't get on the internet, the little fob. It was always the digital fob question. They could never do the fob right. But when you're dealing with pharmaceuticals, there's a lot of FDA guidelines you have to follow, especially dealing with your samples. And
Mm-hmm.
the team I worked with was Pfizer. Well, one of them was Pfizer and Sanofi Aventis, and they made Ambien. So you have to be on point with your samples, and you have to say, "I got this many samples from FedEx.
And
I gave
your
the
counter
doctor
better
this
be
many,"
correct.
or you go to jail.
Yeah. Well, you were dealing with drug dealers without open guns.
Yeah, yeah.
And the strippers are not necessarily part of the picture. They're not going
But no,
yeah.
they were drug dealers. They were serious. I saw more money there than probably I've ever seen in my life. And so I would have ladies calling me in tears, like, "My count is 5 off. I don't know what happened," and I'd just be like, "Reboot your computer," and they'll show up. You know what I mean? But we also, when you're in a pharmaceutical company, they give you a car. You get a card and an American Express Black card.
Nice.
Because that's because they changed a lot of it, and they can't do, the pharma reps can't do like they used to do. Like they used to go into the doctor's office with a whole bunch of pens and toys, and then take the whole office out for lunch to get them to prescribe.
Mad swag.
Yeah, and that down the road turned into the whole opioid issue thing, and yeah. But so when they did a rollout where they went from regular laptops to the convertibles, so it was before tablets, so they could actually have the doctors sign physically for their samples. I was on the team that helped roll that out, and that's when I really saw the money. Like, my manager took me to the side. It was the first time I had ever traveled corporately, and he was like, "If any of these guys ask you, are you hungry? Even if you're not, you are hungry. You want to eat." I said, "Okay, that's cool." I didn't realize that these on the regular, they Roof Chris for lunch. Let's do it. You hungry? Yes, I'm hungry.
Right. Yeah.
This the guy, and then they like to give you drinks. This the guy that fixed my laptop. Give him a drink. So I went through that, but then I got tired of that, and they also ran the data centers for the pharmaceutical companies. I had no idea that all this was going on in the middle of Chesapeake. They ran the data centers for maybe the top 30 pharmaceutical companies: Pfizer, Bristol Myers Squibb,
Man,
anybody and everybody, AstraZeneca, because they all have to have that here just in case the government's like, we need to see what you got going on. So
right.
I worked as an operator in a data center, changing tapes, doing backups, scheduling backups. I was one step down for being an admin. I thought about being an admin for a little while, but I think I was more so on the creative side, and this kind of got me over. See, where did I go from there? Then I met a wonderful lady. Both of my mentors are in technology, are are not the average technology. You for one, and it's a lady named Deborah Peters. And I was just tired of working in a data center. I wanted something new, something to challenge me. She worked for a company that did advanced video conferencing, and she gave me an interview, liked what she saw, and I got the job. This is the coolest job I think I've ever had. It was the one job that I loved going to work every day. It was over here. I live in Hampton now. It made me move, and when I bought my house, I bought a house over here in Hampton, and it was so cool. But what made it cool was we were a subsidiary. We had a satellite office. The main office was in Dayton, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, my job was, the black guy in the Matrix,
Which one?
Tank, the guy that actually ran the Matrix. I was Tank.
Uh-huh.
So we have these huge video conferencing rooms, and like we have big clients like Zurich, the insurance company, and huge corporate clients. And what they would have would be these conference rooms, real lavish conference rooms, and they had these video conferences systems that were 1-to-1. So if you were sitting at the conference table and you looked across the conference table, it looked like whoever you were talking to in Japan or China or South Korea was sitting
Yeah,
in front
it's
of you.
got the crazy camera set up on
Yeah,
the.
it was all immersive. It was a big wall, 16 feet by such and such, and speakers all and mics all in the room, but it was made so you couldn't see them. They had special lenses on the camera, so it keep glasses from
It's the same kind of lenses you'd see at, like the poker tables of the World Series of Poker.
yeah. So your
You,
glasses wouldn't
you
glare
see
and
them,
all
but
that, and you wouldn't have reflections and yeah, that kind of stuff. And like these rooms were just to start would be over $100,000. So I had two jobs. One job was to manage the rooms. So if you had a meeting in New York and you needed to talk to the office in Tokyo, you'll call me. I'll set up the room. I hated time zones because of that, but I had to figure out the time zone equivalent, and I didn't know it was a thing that some countries don't do daylight savings, and that's a whole nother math that I
see,
didn't want to do.
World Clock, like World Clock is your friend.
Yeah, worldclock.com. Yeah, I sure did.
No, not no. There's the .com, but there's apps like I've completely left off the dealing with folks in Kolkata time
Oh yeah,
zone,
yeah.
all that because it just didn't see. I've got contacts that I hear from in Australia, like in Sydney and Perth
Mhm.
and Darwin. Yeah, every device, every computer, whatever. As soon as I get a phone, put World Clock on it,
Uh-huh.
put the time zones in that I'm gonna most deal with. And after a while, you don't have to necessarily look at it so much, but it's still handy to have it right there. But anyway,
When I started this job, though, it was pre-iPhone.
no, I mean I'm talking about even on a computer.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a website we used to go to. So we would schedule the meeting, then I would actually make sure that the meeting connected. So I would log in through the back end. It's like a Unix Linux interface. Log into
Mm-hmm.
the back end, make sure everything's connected, check the packet rate and all that. Also, like when they put new rooms online, we would travel to make sure that I didn't have to put together the room, but I had to test the room and make sure everything was working. And so then I got doing a whole another round of traveling for free, which is traveling for free. It's great. And I got to travel like Deb. She took me under her arm and she trained me. She's like the most incredible. She's about 5'2" and goes 100 miles per hour. Funny story, the first time she took me to Dayton with her to the home office, I was playing with her. I was like, Dad, I'm going to hang with you. We're going to do it. Whatever you do, I'm going to do. She said, okay, you think you're up for that? Yeah, let's do it. 2 days later, without any sleep, I'm like, Dad, I can't take it. I'm going back to the hotel room. But she was incredible. Like, I would love to hook y'all two up, sit back and just see what kind of conversations y'all have. But she also taught me, about wine and sushi. And she taught me about, I had no idea, but when you travel, they had this whole special VIP club, like the Delta Club. And
it's tucked away in every airport.
And it's like a little nondescript door. You wouldn't, if you ain't know about it, you ain't know it.
You're like, wow, you feel like you're back. It feels like, even though it's modern decor, there's something about it that feels like, see, flying used to be glamorous in the 60s and 70s.
You started to dress up.
You started to dress up,
right.
Because you were doing a thing. This wasn't Greyhound. It's all become Greyhound now, unless you're flying United Arab Emirates flight, where you've got your...
The wraparound seating and TVs and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you'll walk in that room, and it's like you walked in the Ray's Boom Boom room. And waitresses, what would you like to drink? And it's free because you're part of the club. Like, all you gotta do is like tip them. There's TVs everywhere, and I had no idea that
every seat is comfortable.
Yeah, they had food, whatever you want, and like you'll mess around and miss your flight and wouldn't even care.
Yeah, you'll be like, oh.
So then after that, I worked there. And like any other tech company, eventually they got bought out by somebody else. So I took another job. At this time, my wife had started getting sick. She had cancer. And so mainly my main job was taking care of her. Yeah. And the crazy thing was she lived long enough to take care of me. So I told you my story about having a heart attack. I had my heart attack in about February. I had my surgery in March. At this time, she had stage 3 pancreatic cancer. But she was still operating. Luckily, they found it when she was young. It was very aggressive. Most people, when they have pancreatic cancer, they die within weeks or months. She had 2 years. So, yeah, that gave us 2 years of time. And so, excuse me for a second. My batteries are beeping. I got to change. See, Superman, I got to change my batteries. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, bro, I'm a phone. So when it goes off, you have to change your batteries. I got about 15 minutes or it stops working.
Oh, I get it. I dig it.
So getting back to the story, she had about, she still was functioning and operating, and she took care of me while I was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came out, I recovered. We had about 2 or 3 months, and then that's when she started to decline. So after that, after she passed, my job was being daddy. Luckily, I had worked enough in my lifetime that I kind of didn't have to work anymore. So it all worked out.
Right.
Excuse me for the battery change.
No, it's so good. I mean, but just to be able to have the discussion,
Yeah,
is the option. A lot of people who can't say the same.
Yeah.
So
IT's been good to me, man. And I go back to, I got to thank you, man, because you showed me, you were the influence. You showed me how to operate and still be myself.
it's a hard trip to walk.
Mhm.
I'm glad like to see, hats off to you, compliments to you because you've done it and didn't have to compromise your soul to get there. And I mean, don't get me wrong, your hair is not your soul.
Mhm.
You look at your soul is your soul. But um, yeah, I've seen too many people who've taken that walk and they thought in order to, all right, um, yeah, I got something coming up. I'm gonna have to jump shortly,
All right.
but a lot of people think in order to get to that point that you've got to you've got to they're quick to shed those parts of themselves,
Mhm.
you know, where no, you didn't have to shed that part of yourself in order to fit in more, especially in, oh man, don't even get me started on matters of race. And I mean, I'm not trying to be a hotep, not trying
Right.
to matter of race baiting and all that, but just um I've known people who um said, you'll never be able to do this, that, and the other thing until you do this, that, and the other, this, that other thing.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but the only way I'm gonna know is to keep on as I am and charge forward, be 5 times better. You,
Mhm.
you you can't just be mediocre. You
Mhm.
got to, if you black, you already got to be 5 times better at whatever you do. The focus, the dedication to it. Um, while other people are sleeping at night, you in it,
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Mhm.
I don't care if you into basket weaving, and that's something that like some of the younger folks that I talk to now, it feels weird having gray hair and say some of the younger folks talk to. Like right now, two of my nephews, actually, one's my first cousin's son, and one is my brother Jason's, one of his sons. They're expressing an interest in cybersecurity.
Mhm.
Um, and I think some of it really came from those damn video games, believe it or not, because
Mhm.
the kids play the video games and people talk smack.
Mhm.
And it's like some of the most caustic stuff ever. I'm like, yo, really? Did that? So you get like a 30-year-old using your harsh language to like a little 12-year-old, but then the 12-year-olds are coming back like, and
Right.
but then they're like, Uncle Max, so and so threatened to do this and threatened to do that, and I was like, this is how this works, how that works. No, they did, and then they've read my last book,
Mhm.
which was on. I used the zombie apocalypse as a metaphor for cybercrime.
Mhm.
Okay, it started with the whole like zombies, infected computers and all that.
Right.
Because most of my clients were like, I could say, you can disinfection, that infection. It can, you know, it can be like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of computers in this botnet. Their eyes would start to glaze over because these were usually decision-making white men in their early 60s on up. But I could say there's 100,000 zombies out in the parking lot,
Mhm.
and they're all banging on the walls trying to get it here at you and everything in this office. They get that. Even
Okay.
if they don't
Right.
want they get that. And so that keyed me off. So I started writing that book and published it back in it's 2014. Yeah. So it's been out for a few years, and um, I keep saying someday I've got to do a second edition because it also has some of my experiences, not only on the road but also in the dark nets, dealing with cyber criminals
Mhm.
undercover. Because uh, I've got alternate identity. I've got aliases. I've got alternate identities for my aliases for alternate identities. Along with PGP keys and stuff to communicate with folks. You know, um, And in a couple of cases, I was actually physically in places where this was going on, and I'm under completely, I'm not Max Nomad. I'm not Johnny George. I'm not any of those people. I'm somebody else.
Uh-huh.
Was a little stretch, and mostly because of who I knew and what I was writing about. And some of that involved like the Russian mafia and some other shit. Yeah, it was, but anyway, that's stuff that ended up in the book. And then now they've read those books,
Uh-huh.
which I never intended for kids to read those books. So now
Right.
it's like, not only answering questions for them, helping them understand and helping keeping them on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you want to learn cybersecurity? No, those kids don't know what they're talking about. You want to understand how malware works? You got to reverse engineer it. You want to learn?
The
Here's
number one security breach is stupidity.
Yeah, and human, stupidity, human ignorance, human arrogance.
Mm-hmm.
Humans, really, and teach is so I've got a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old who I'm pretty sure they're cursing at me now because they're like, Uncle Max said I got to learn assembly language. You ever mess with assembly language?
No, but I know what it is.
See, but I mean, and I didn't bother to tell them they're probably never going to write an entire program out of assembly.
Right.
But I said, you want to understand how this works, you got to understand that. And so they're learning, accumulators, registers, and stacks, and and then this assembler, that assembler, this debugger, that debugger. Between that and learning, teaching them slowly how to use Linux, and even then, it's more like a lot of conversations because of the pandemic stuff. One lives in Texas, one lives in Los Angeles, and they'll text me often, probably while they should be paying attention in their class because they're in virtual classrooms.
Uh-huh.
So I'll talk with them a little bit and say, okay, we got to talk later because I know you two should be paying attention to your teacher. Is it boring? And I was like, look, I understand it's boring. Some of it's got to be boring. The thing is that you've got to focus in order. You got to keep those teachers happy. The only thing you don't keep the teachers happy, your parents are not going to be happy. If your parents are not going to be happy, you're not going to be happy. The last thing you want to do is compromise the trust of your parents. You got to maintain appearances. And they're like, maintain appearances. And then Ian's like, that sounds like a gangster movie. I said, it is like a gangster movie. Said, you got to maintain appearances. If you want to learn the cool stuff, you got to do the boring stuff.
Right. But the boring stuff will pay for the cool stuff. Yeah. Which I want to segue into. You, sir, I thought I was the gadget guru. You, sir, was the first time I had ever seen an Apple Newton. You brought it into the office and put it on my table.
I still got it.
Really?
That's Newton's.
For everybody who doesn't know, this was the first iPhone. It was not a laptop. It was not a computer.
It was about the size of a Star Trek tricorder.
Yeah, it was like if Apple made a Palm Pilot.
It was before, the Palm Pilot came out in the late 90s, like around the early 2000s. Apple really, the first handheld computer, had a little stylus, LCD screen.
It's the great grandfather to what our modern day phones are.
Yep. Oh, wow. Yeah. See, a lot of the stuff. The only thing, desktop computers or any machines I get rid of, I just take the hard drives out, recycle the machine, or give the machine away or something. But most of those smaller devices, I keep them. I've got a drawer with at least the Newton, couple of Palm Pilots, a BlackBerry that a company gave me and never took back.
Uh-huh.
Every phone that I've had, and every smartphone,
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I hadn't thought about the Newton in a long time.
And you're the only person I ever saw with it in real life.
Oh, and I bought that off of a friend of mine, and yeah, it served its purpose. Matter of fact, it was I used that to write most of my first book, which was a collection of poems and short stories, because I could take that into like a bar or whatever with me and have it in my pocket and just sit in the corner, just now. I mean, I still do it. It's just I don't have to use. I've got the tablets and all of that, but
and it still works.
Still works. I mean, I have like I've like I plugged it in. It's still there. I'm sure anything that was on some of that memory expansion is probably shot, but I backed all of that up. I've got archives of hard drives of stuff that I'll have to go through someday. Matter of fact, I don't know if you remember that SGI, Silicon Graphics.
Yeah, you had the first SGI machine I ever saw.
I got that.
Wow.
That was something that I was like, look, I worked too hard. I'm keeping this. So took it with me, traveled with me. It survived all the carnage. And then with the way everything went down with the businesses and all that, the Picus bankruptcy attorney was trying to get in, inventory. It's like, this is missing. And I was like, yes, it is. Who knows? I said, you might go to check that office again.
Right. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. And I'm pretty sure he knew. And because with all of that, I actually had to go in order to make something happen with. There was all kinds of other stuff that went down between iTribe and there was a lot of drama that was completely outside of what y'all saw.
Right.
Like between Keith Basil and Mike Adolphi and those fools fighting. And then Keith taking Christmas.com out. And then in order to keep Adolphi from suing Keith and sinking Christmas.com, I had to keep things, because if we had all rolled out, there would have been nobody to stop him. Christmas.com would still be tied up in court to this day, probably. Yeah. And we ended up, not only that, but also some of the other early .com products that we had and ended up selling off. And
that's another thing I learned from you. I made my first big side money selling .coms.
Nice.
And it was a group of 3 of us that worked there. I don't know if you remember Richard Lee, and he was on the art side of Automart, and Randy Rubin. He worked.
Yeah, I remember Randy Rubin.
Yeah.
He's called Rizzo.
Yeah. So we all went together and we were going to make a website. And I was going to call it Urban Media. So I went out.
Yeah.
Remember? So I went out and I got Urban Media, and we were like.
I remember it was a good brand name.
Yeah. So we were all out. We were young. We was all trying to plan it and figure out what we were doing. So basically, it was a whole lot of nights at somebody's apartment getting drunk, but we never really did anything. And out of the blue, this executive from Paramount Movies called me and was like, "Do you want to sell the .com?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he was like, "We'll give you $5,000." And I was like, "Okay." Hold on, let me check with my partners.
Right.
And yeah, that was the very first one I sold. And then come to find out, Urban Media, they afterwards they used it to do like animations, a little short urban movies. And one of the one of the stories that came out of that was the cartoon series Undercover Brother.
Nice.
Which later became the movie Undercover Brother. I was like, y'all wouldn't even have Undercover Brother if it weren't for me.
It's cool.
Yeah, man. I know your time is going. I really appreciate this. And I'm just gonna call this episode Rambling with Max Nomad.
Yeah, there's other stories that just, I don't know, just don't know where to begin. I don't know, but it's good to see. It's good you're still here. I didn't know about all the heart attack stuff.
Yeah, man.
You know, that's heavy.
I'm a fighter, man.
No, it's good. It's good. You know, I find any opportunity to appreciate Black men, Black people, doing things within the parameters of who they are, making great things happen, being good souls, being good people, and overcoming adversity. That's always something to be applauded.
Thank you.
You know, and you got to applaud it at every chance you get, because you never know when. Oh, I don't know if your mic picked that up, but this is. Yeah, I definitely got to jump now because I got to.
Well, tell anybody how they can catch you on the interwebs.
Well, on Twitter, I'm at Max _Nomad. I'm my website www.beach-geek.com. It's beach-geek.com. Max Nomad on Facebook. Max Nomad on Instagram. Most of the time, I'm probably easiest to catch on Beach Geek and Twitter, you know, and then just Google around a little bit. You know, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn too, but real talk, I never log in there. I get regular alerts, and I might log in like 3 or 4 times a year because, you know, I take care of my clients, and then I look at it and I say, man, I've really got to update my profile. I got to add this, I got to add that. And then I put it in my little task to do thing. And then something else will come up, and it's usually something that seems far more profitable.
Right.
You know, like, and I'm not even talking about outside of the IT stuff, outside of the design projects that come and go. Like, I've got to work with someone that she's got to get a package design out the door. Stock analysis. That's what I spend most of my time doing. Not only analyzing stocks to trade, you know, so technical analysis, but also the fundamentals of different stocks for long-term investments. And so I'm analyzing that stuff and then say, okay, I like this, but its earnings aren't here yet, but it's hot. So I can, you know, and it's narrowed it down, keep it in a journal, log it, trade it. Since 2016, my portfolio has gone up, and I'm not bragging, but the learning the stuff, because people say, I want to get into it, but I say, like, look, there's a lot to it. It's overwhelming. Just keep banging your head against it, because you'll look at it and, like, you might look at a whole bunch of information and none of it makes sense. You look at it tomorrow, none of it makes sense, but one thing might start to make sense. Keep doing that day after day after day. Things start to click. Like, my portfolio has gone up 942% since 2016. And that was, you know, this is not including my IRA, which building that, and I don't know. Then when I'm away from all of that, I'm into astronomy, stargazing.
Okay.
Big telescopes and big binoculars and looking at mountainscapes and craters on the moon and Jupiter and the occasional comet, and occasionally seeing rockets launch from Wallops Island. You know, but anyway, look, man, much love to you and the family, and the kids look great, by the way.
Thank you. But once all this is all over, I'm gonna have to take you out, buy you a drink, because there would be no Hershey Brown if it was no Max Nomad.
Hershey Brown. That is the name. It takes me back.
All right, man. It was good talking to you. I'll be in touch.
Good talking to you, sir.
Have
Take
a good
care.
one.
You too. Peace.